But I think it's really important to see that the shareholders who have pocketed so much cash, we've got £1.4 billion in dividends in 2022, 1.6 million for the CEO. The shareholders, the directors who run this company into the ground need to be held accountable. And also the creditors who are owed lots of debt, that's really big banks in Britain and Germany and America, they probably need to take a haircut as well, because all of this money is coming straight out of the pockets of Londoners and people who live in the Thames Valley. They've seen water bills rise by 40% since privatisation. They're talking now about another 40% rise to pay for the investment that's been lacking. And so the government doesn't really have very many good options, and that speaks to the real big policy failure of privatisation.
So what would public ownership mean for people's bills? What would it mean for other issues that we talk about a lot in the UK, in particular, raw sewage being dumped into rivers and the sea?
Well, again, great question. So if you go to Scotland, Scottish Water has roughly 10% lower bills than the average bills being paid for water in England, where everything is privatised. So we can see right around the world, England is an extreme outlier in having privatised its water services. 90% of countries and jurisdictions have public water, and that's because we can see that water is a natural monopoly. Bills will be lower in public ownership, but I think it's absolutely right to point out that sort of old-style nationalisation, where you just have a board of directors appointed top-down by the Secretary of State in Whitehall, isn't necessarily the best way to go. If we look at Paris Water, recently brought back into public ownership, they give voice in the governing body for the staff who work at the utility, also service users. They have voice, they can play a part in governance, and that's what really modern public ownership and public governance ought to look like, with all stakeholders involved.
OK, Dr. Ewan McGaughey, it's good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us here on the BBC.